I'm welcoming you from the coffee break to the listening to the community session. I'm Tomi Dolenc from Arnes, a Slovenian NRN, and I'm just going to briefly introduce this session. Over the last couple of years, I've witnessed many discussions about where NRNs should move or how to decide which services to offer to our community. And it's been something we've been doing all along. And of course, everybody would say that we've been listening to our community all along. We're proud of being part of the community, not just somebody from the outside selling them services and stuff. So what are we talking about? We're talking about this shift that 20 years ago when we started, or 20 more years ago when we started, the services the user needed were connection to the internet, email, and web, and that was more or less it. And we were bringers of this technology, and we were educators or missionaries of this technology. And now, of course, there's a vast system of services and things that our users need, and it may not necessarily be our mission as an NRNs, nor ability to cover them all. So how to decide? And the answer is listening to the community some more, and maybe doing it in a more structured way, and using what we now like to call market approach. The M word was not very popular in the past in our community, but now it just means that we are doing it in a bit of structured way. So I'm inviting Lonneke Valk from SurfNet to explain to us what this more structured way of thinking about services.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Lonneke Valk. I'm a communication manager at SurfNet, and I'll give this presentation together with Walter van Dijk, my colleague at SurfNet. We do this presentation together. And what we do in these presentations is that we share our experiences and the developments we made to our lifecycle portfolio management. Actually to make the next step in our professionalizing our service portfolio. And the reason why we looked at our service portfolio is that we see a lot of changes in the environment. First thing is that there's a shift within the ICT departments we see from ICT operations to ICT coordination. Meaning that they outsource their commodity services to the market and to the cloud. However, some institutions are not, keen on bringing everything to the public cloud, so they ask SurfNet to deliver some services, some commodity services, to acquire them. Oh, sorry. And they do that for some reasons, because they want to know where the data is stored due to privacy and security issues. So they want to know, they trust SurfNet in that, so that's why they ask SurfNet for some commodity services. They want to profit from economies of scale within the sector, and also standardization within the sector of higher education and research is increasingly important because it facilitates even better national and international cooperation. The second thing is that we see that ICT technology progresses rapidly, resulting in commoditization of services. So, as NRN, we have the role in offering market distinctive added value services. So the commoditization of these services makes it difficult for us to remain distinctive in terms of functionality. And therefore, maybe we must seek to new business models. In other words, should we not solely focus on technical innovation, but also on market innovation. Another thing is that our holding, SURF, changed to a cooperation, meaning that the member institutions have more influence on our service portfolio. And we see that there are more market competitors targeting our community with innovative products. And last is that the innovation grants are under high pressure, so it's even more difficult to get grant for innovative services, that service that we as NRN want to serve for our target group. So for us, that means these ongoing developments require us to anticipate. We can't stand still in this changing environment. As NRN, we have to listen more to our community. And we think the challenge we see is find the right balance between the more tech-push services, continue to offer the services that the market doesn't supply yet, and the demand pull services, that the more commodity services that our institution are asking to deliver us. How can that balance be found? We have considered our service development process, and we believe that making the right choices will become more and more important. And making the right choices means which service we need to offer and which we don't. And also make that decisions at the right moment, recognize where the opportunities are, and also by the right stakeholders. But of course, we don't have to throw everything overboard. We have to keep the good things we have. And we as an NRN have to continue, of course, strengthening our role as an NRN. And that means we have to keep focusing on services that are highly innovative in order to differentiate us from the market in terms of functionality or maybe in other business models. And we also have to stimulate the market to develop new technologies and services for our clients. So that's product leadership. And also customer intimacy is one of our ambitions, is that we also want to listen to our community. We want to serve them. We want to help them in having the right services. And of course, we want to keep on collaborating with our members and peers. And we are very proud of our employees. They are the enthusiastic people who have innovative ideas, new ideas. And we don't want to build a process while we kill our darlings. So they should have, we have to keep the freedom to come up with new ideas without having a structure that's strict in everything. So this is the life cycle management process we have now. And the main thing is that it has a stronger market and customer perspective. And the improvements can be found in, we can prevent now that good ideas get hanging up in the organization. We have this process, we give it a new life actually into the company, so everybody knows now about this process. This is the process we follow. And it's more explicit and clarity for all employees, and it's more predictable also for our customers. And the change is in an explicit go, no-go by the management. So every phase has a real go or a no-go from the management. And we do that by a session with the product owner, the one who has the new service ID, and the management. Then the product owner gives a pitch, and afterwards there's a good discussion between the management and the product owner. And afterwards there's a go or a no-go. We also introduce business models, and a business model is just a Word file wherein we describe the added value of a new service. And it's very important to say that it's not a quantitative assessment. It only stimulates discussions. And to give a short view what's in a business model, it's shortly this. It gives an executive summary, what, why, and how. It gives an overview of the added values, the market opportunities, the customer needs. What are we going to do with sales and marketing, the finances, planning, and of course, operations and staff, what is needed if this service will be a success. And if you see in the model, we have 3 versions of it, a very light, weighted model, a 0.5, that is just a short overview of the idea, and in the next phase it will be And once a service is introduced, it doesn't stop. One of our values is also high quality of the service, and also to continue the development of the service to stay distinctive from the market. And for that reason, we have introduced a service quality check, and also road mapping. So that's also in the process. This results in 14 concepts now in the process we have at SurfNet who want to become a service. But the basic idea is that between every stage transition, there will be a kind of a filter. So it's not said that every 0.5 service will be to go to the next stage. I give now the word to Walter, because this is actually the services who are more the tech push services, the services we are used to deliver. But we also have more the demanding. I explained we have to find the balance between the demand pool. So the institutions are asking us to deliver some products or services. And we noticed that it needs a little bit of, a reshaped model of this one. So I give the word to Walter.
Okay, thank you, Lonneke. Like Lonneke already explained, my name is Walter van Dijk, responsible for account advising and product management within SurfNet. And she also explained that we are still focusing on the tech push model, so we still try to stimulate our employees to come up with ideas, and they follow the structure that she just outlined. But it still is a tech push orientation. The ideas spring up within the SurfNet organization, and from there on they move on further. Well, the main thing is that it's more market, more customer oriented. But then in addition to this tech push model, we also have another model that we're experimenting now with for about a year, and we call that the demand pool model. And well, there are some differences in this model. The primary difference is in the first phase, in which we do not have a business model 0.5, where someone needs to explain what a service is and whether customers should be or could be asking for that. In this situation, we have a concrete group, 4, 5, 6, 7 customers. Can be universities, can be academic hospitals, can be research organizations. But it works better if there's some homogeneity within the group. We call that an early adopter group. If they form such a group, we ask that there is commitment for this demand at the board level within the organization. So it should be a strategic decision to ask this functionality from us. If that is available, if the signatures are all there, then we start a formal project structure. And another difference is that this early adopter group, this group of institutions that have the lead, finances the cost of the first phases of the life cycle. But then the really important difference with the other model is the fact that the requirements of the service are not defined within SurfNet in this case, not defined by the NREN, but the requirements are drafted by the people from the group of institutes that have taken the initiative. So, like I mentioned, it's a project structure, so there's a project team, and they draft the requirements for the service. And then from then on, the model quite looks the same. There's also go, no-go decisions, but here on 2 levels, both within the group of early adopters as well as within SURF, of course. But those are the main differences. So if you look at that in a little bit more detail, you see there is some demand. You start this new project with this early adopter group. They define requirements, and then the next phase, which is probably the most interesting for us, at least for the institutes, it's probably the phase 1, but for us it's phase 2, is where you look, well, the requirements have been handed over to SurfNet in this case, and then we need to define, will we buy this functionality from the market, will we do a public procurement, and see if the market can deliver this, because it's usually commodity type of services that they ask us to provide to them, or will we develop it in-house, and that's of course a major decision. And it really helps to have requirements that can form the ground to make a sound decision on that. Well, if you look at that in phase 1, where we draft the requirements, we currently have a group of 5 universities that are looking into web services. That's primarily web hosting, a really commodity type of thing. On average, they have some 200 websites, and well, they've asked us, wouldn't you be able to deliver this for us? But in the end, all these things will, if they become a service, they will become available for the 160 institutes that we provide services to. In phase 2, you see 2 examples. A rather big one, potentially, is infrastructure as a service. That's where 6 universities of applied sciences, large universities of applied sciences, have asked us to develop an infrastructure as a service, and they've handed over their requirements, and we're currently investigating whether the requirements map on the solutions that are available in the market. So there's a request for information distributed quite recently. And then on the other hand, we're also investigating building the service ourselves, and it might very well be that we will offer both variants so that they can choose between a solution that is maybe a little bit more expensive, but can be trusted maybe a little bit more because they know where the data is, who has access to the data, etc. In the model in which SURF provides the service. And then on the other hand, we will probably buy a similar service based on the same requirements from the market. Same for email. That's 7 academic hospitals. They've all standardized their email on Exchange. And they've asked us to look into that, see if we can come up with a better solution than having 7 individual academic hospitals providing this service individually. And we don't know, well, also there the requirements have been handed over. We don't know which delivery or service model we will choose there, but might very well be a model in which the lower layer, the storage of the data, will be within SURFnet, and then on top of that we will probably look for a commercial company that can then deliver the service on the application layer, and within SURF we will then provide, of course, a one-stop shop to the customers. But we're still in that process, working towards 1 August this year for both services. And then a service that has already been through the process is SURF Drive. It's an own cloud-based service for personal storage. We've delivered that service together with 14 universities. We have 14 universities in the Netherlands, so this has really become the standard for personal storage. And it has followed the same route through the process. So it was the universities that made up the requirements. It was SURF that defined the delivery model. And currently it is a service with some 6,000 users, and it's growing fast. So in this model, this demand pool model, we're not doing this as SURFnet on our own. We're collaborating here with our 2 sister companies. On the one hand, we've got SURF Sara, which is focusing on high-end storage, HPC, those kind of things. And there's also SURF Market, another sister company that is primarily a broker for ICT services. We're all servicing the same 160 institutions, but we each have a different role. And if you map that on the different service models that you could invent, then on the one hand you have a make model in which everything is within the SURF organization. On the other hand, the other end of the spectrum, you could imagine a buy model in which everything is obtained from commercial companies. And then you see some differences in this slide. If you go, for instance, to the public cloud, that might work very well, but you should not expect a lot of impact on the functionality. And well, on the other hand, if you look at a make model, so delivering a service from the SURF Community Cloud, well, if they have certain wishes, certain demands, certain requirements, we can, up to a certain level, accommodate them. So that's the advantage of that model. And of course, it's nice with these 3 organizations that you can offer the different options, like I mentioned with the infrastructure as a service model. The cheap one that is a little bit more on the right, I guess, and then the more trusted and a little bit more expensive one on the other side of the spectrum. So in a little bit more detail, this might look like this. So on the left-hand side, and this is where we might very well end up with the web services thing, because we know the requirements, and if you look at these requirements, it seems to fit quite well in the left model. So all we do there is providing the connectivity to our network by means of M6, the Internet Exchange in the Netherlands, or Netherlight, an open exchange on the optical level. And on top of that, you see services provided by commercial companies. On the right-hand side, you see Surf Drive. There, everything has been organized within Surf. So it's based on our infrastructure, it's in our data centers, it's directly connected to our network. So this works well, but it's not the cheapest solution. It doesn't really scale as well as it does on the left-hand side. And then the most interesting thing maybe is the one in the middle, and I explained that when I mentioned the email requirements that academic hospitals have. That could very well fit the service model depicted here in the middle. Well, I sort of mentioned this, I guess. So where are the different solutions? The one I didn't mention, which is in phase 3 now, is wireless as a service. I'm not sure whether other NRENs are looking into that, but we've seen quite a demand from many institutions asking us to take over their wireless infrastructure on campus, that is. And we have developed this service based on the lifecycle model that Lonneke explained, the tech push model. So we defined the requirements, but that is, we were in the lead there. Whereas if we would have had this model, we would probably have taken this route, because it makes sense to have a large role for the institutes to make up the requirements, as this is not something very innovative. It's something that the institutes have experience with on the campus level, so why not have them define the requirements? So what are the lessons that we learned? Well, we learned primarily that it's good to have two different type of processes, and depending on the service, either a tech push, an innovative service, or something that is already available on the campus and where scale is being searched for, you can look at a more demand pool type of process. And for both type of services, you need different processes. The institutions have a quite different role in the demand pool process. Well, we've also learned that we should formalize things a little bit more. We've seen many examples of good ideas staying in the heads of individual employees within SurfNet or within our constituency. And this thing with the business models, which is very lightweight, especially the 0.5. This is all information that we of course want to share with you, the templates, etc. But it's very lightweight, so it's not a burden for an employee to fill in this model. And well, we've seen that it's really becoming the standard. If someone has an ICE ID within SurfNet, they write it up in the business model, and they know, well, now I'm going to have a discussion with management, which is good. And then if I get a go, I get a budget and I can move on. And the last thing is that customers really like this because they can see things coming. The last slide that Lonneke presented showed where the different new services are in the process, so they can see which services they should expect 6 months or maybe a year from now. So maybe a little bit more, we could go into this much more, I think, during the next TNC, but that still takes us a year. But we've started thinking on portfolio management. So if you have a lot of services, we've some 25 services being operational, and we're currently developing about 20, I think. You need some sort of portfolio management. You need to decide where do I want to invest in and which things am I going to leave to the customers or to the market or whatever. Well, you probably all know this one from the Boston Consultancy Group. It's not working for NRENs. We're not trying to enlarge our market share. We're working for a closed user group, so this is not working. So we've been thinking about the axis that could work for an NREN, and then the most important one is probably the y-axis, which is about distinctiveness to the market. And then, of course, it takes as customer demand. And if you look at that, you can have different quadrants Well, that went a little bit fast, but I guess you get the idea. Here, for instance, you could have network function virtualization, something that we're all looking right now. Very innovative, but there's not many customers asking for that. Innovative services with a high customer demand. In our case, light paths would be point-to-point services. Layer 2 would be in that segment. High customer demand, but less distinctive. Well, we've got a mill filter service, for instance, which fits in this quadrant. Not innovative, no real customer demand. Maybe domain names could be here. Well, you could also look at the amount of turnover that you have in a service. You could do all kind of things to give it some structure. Well, just to conclude, we'll continue, no misunderstanding about that, providing innovative services. We're doing two things, product leadership as well as being close to our customers. But this is very important for an NREN, and it will stay important to provide services that are not generally available in the market, or not yet. But we try to focus a little bit more on the customer demand side by following market and technology developments, especially in the tech push model. And then the additional demand pool approach is an opportunity for us to expand our role to the campus, to more commodity type of services, and thereby becoming more relevant to our institutes. So that sort of sums it all up, but I don't know if we have some time for questions. 2 minutes? Okay. Your phone is it Lonnike's phone?
Yeah?
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Lonneke. Yes, we have a couple of minutes for questions. Are there mics? Yeah.
Hi there. I understand this is a new model for you, particularly the demand pull. Do you find or do you expect that if resources are tight, that the demand pull will override the tech push?
Yeah, I think the amount of government grants could have to do something with that, but I still would hope that we would find the right balance between the two of those, and that's also the primary reason why we're focusing on portfolio management. It's all about this right balance.
Thanks.
At the front?
Hi there. Thanks a lot. First of all, I guess I'm your sort of equivalent at Switch. So I'm developing an innovation process as well at the moment. And what struck me by surprise a bit was when you spoke about your technology push, and especially in the business model. I wondered whether or not it's useful to re-evaluate the business model at certain times alongside the life cycle of a service as well. Because this is a part which I found a bit missing.
I'm not sure what you mean by re-evaluate the business model.
Re-evaluating since the market and the customer demands for this specific service might change over time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then in the process we start with a lightweight business model, the 0.5, and then you go to the next phase, and then you do a proof of concept or a survey. So you also looking at the market opportunities. So you're changing the business model during the process.
Sure, and then once a service is spread on the market, and let's say in the case the service would be on market after 2 or 3 years, or would you re-evaluate?
Yeah. That's what we do with the road mapping. Yeah, that's why we introduce the quality check and the road mapping. And then the road mapping is especially for that kind of things, to just look at the market again, and look at the service again. So that's in our road mapping process. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Lots of questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
With your demand the early adopter group get a financial advantage by being early adopters? You say they pick up the cost of the initial evaluation, but then do late joiners get a free ride, or do the early adopters get a better deal?
To be honest, it's the other way around. So the 14 universities were the driving force behind Surf Drive, for instance, and they paid both the project costs as well as a little bit higher tariff for the first 10,000 users that we needed to get. But they were quite transparent in that, so they know about that, and they were willing to go along with that because we have some solidarity. Universities have the bigger budgets, and they also wanted to have a lot of standardization within our constituency when it comes to personal storage. So they were willing to go with this. So they paid, I think it's, I'm not sure about the amount, but I believe it was 40 euros a year, 40, per user, whereas the price now for Surf Drive is 18 euros per year. So the answer is no.
And if I could be cheeky and have a second question about early adopters. With the process where you've got good ideas come out of the technology push, but there isn't enough demand, do you then look for an early adopter group to work with to turn it around into a demand pool?
I'm not sure whether I understand. You're asking if you've tried the tech push model and you find out that there's not enough demand for it in our constituency, whether we then try to find an early adopter group.
Well, it might be that you might not be able to afford to do it on your own, off your own budget. The early adopters, there might be enough of them to say.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're experimenting with the market pool model for about a year now, so this is an interesting suggestion, I guess. But so far, we've not been confronted with that. Thank you.
Okay, we're eating up the time already, but I want to allow this last question because it was raised earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? Is it on? Hello? Oh, yeah. There we go. Yeah, you mentioned that transparency is one of the benefits that these processes bring. How do you communicate to the large community about what you do, where you are in the processes and so forth?
Well, we have quarterly meetings with all customer segments, with 5 customer segments, and there's an account advisor per customer segment. And this slide, maybe I should show it. This was the last one of Lonnekes. Where is it?
Down.
No. Huh? Where is it? No.
Well, yeah.
This one. This one is shown every quarter to the customers. So this is the way we try to make transparent what is coming to them. But this is not including the market pool options. All right.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
And I'll invite Chris Herzog to get ready to explain to us how does this influence a team to make this shift. Please. Thanks.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Chris. I work for Switch since 1.5 years. I have a degree in information technology and added some business administration. So my role is simple, the one of a team leader. My team engineers and operates solutions for collaboration and e-learning. So I have not a strategic approach to that topic, but rather a human one. I will not talk about dramatic changes, but I will talk about slightly adapting our view to our work. So after looking at our roots, I'd like to explain what compelled us to adopt. I would like to shed light on 3 areas. People, so what motivates people to change behavior? What do they like, what do they not like about such a shift? Then structure, so what marketing concepts can be helpful in such a shift? And actions, so first steps we did on this way. It's a tech push way, speaking in the words of SurfNet. So then I will quickly talk about the chance that we got from management to further investigate in this direction and about some lessons we've learned. So let me start with an explanation of the thesis I've done together with a woman 22 years ago. Maybe you did similar things. So our mission was to develop a system that should take sharp digital pictures of the moon. There were several components involved, like a device supporting the telescope. It should be controlled, motion controlled in 2 axes. A software that knows where the moon is and how to position that to the moon. And the moon makes quite crazy moves. I can tell you, a circuit for capturing digital images, a mobile control unit, and an algorithm to develop an algorithm that unsmears smeared pictures. So this is the platform we've built to align the telescope with 2 stepper motors, you can see. This is a portable unit that controls the system outdoors and writes to the disk. We have developed several printed circuits to control and read out the image sensors, the CCDs, or that one to position the motors. Many lines of Pascal, C, and assembler code had to be written. So you see, we were quite engaged and creative 22 years ago. But did we bring the world further? Have we at least been the first ones who took sharp pictures of the moon? No, not at all. So the driver was purely pleasure and joy on developing a technical solution. Looking back, I have to smile not only about me, but also about our professor who liked the solution and never asked questions about its sense. So if we look at organizational behavior regarding the market, we can see 4 basic strategies. You can be focused on business to reduce the costs and maybe through mass production, and believe that economies of scale will maximize your profit. That's the first orientation. A product-oriented company believes that its product's high quality and functional features make it superior product. Such a company believes that if they have a superior product, customers will automatically like it as well. A sales-oriented company have a simple focus. They just make a product and then sell it to the target market. And a market-oriented company, that's at the bottom, puts the customer at the heart of the business. All activities in the organization are based around the customer. A market-oriented organization endeavors to understand customer needs and wants, then implements marketing strategy based on their market research, from product development through product sales. Market research and product development here is an ongoing process. So what do you think? Which orientation is typical for an NREN, at least for ours? First one? Other opinions? Second?
Second one, you want to start?
Yeah, I think you're right. I also think it's the second one. And but the fourth one is somewhat attractive, because in today's world, a market-oriented strategy is necessary because customers are able to research products available on the market fairly quickly. If we do not offer customers what they are looking for, product or customer service, they will buy it from a competitor that does. So the famous Intel Corporation was founded by 3 high-tech legends and became a Silicon Valley icon through technical leadership. Although technology remains at the core of its future and its customers are still other high-tech companies, Intel has embraced the consumer focus to create a powerful consumer brand. You'll notice this shift when looking at their website. The same shift is true for Sony. Instead of focusing on their devices and list technical details like megapixels and gigabytes, their website takes the perspective of potential customers, explaining, for example, or talking about taking selfies and other use cases, or useless. So what is urging us to evolve from product focus to market focus? Switch was founded 28 years ago by Swiss universities with the intention to serve them as an internet and IT service provider. We want to make sure that the foundation purpose can be fulfilled in the long term. Therefore, our turnover has to cover our expenses. For this, the profit of our services has to increase by about 1 million per year, a bit more. In addition to this, our services are not unique anymore, so we are getting competed by traditional companies. And this shift that we see is not only concerning us as an NREN, several of these aspects are also valid for IT providers in general. So a colleague of mine who developed a niche industry application for physiotherapists was able to get 6,000 euro per license back in 2000, and today he only gets about 1,000 euro. So we see more competition, more providers. It's no more the organizations who dictate the trends in IT, it's individuals also pushing towards mobile technology, for example. We see that companies are more creative in getting their revenues, so they do not just have a price list, maybe they have a completely different business model like YouTube with advertisements. And what is also different compared to 22 years ago is that 22 years ago you did the things on your own internally, if possible, or at least locally, and now you source anywhere. Now why might the principles of marketing be helpful to face such challenges? Within this sentence, I think 3 things are important. First of all, it promises a solution to our problem. So that's what, at the end, what we want. We want to capture some value from our customers in return. So it seems to be the right discipline, the marketing, the M word. The second important thing is that they are talking about value for customers. And the third one is to build strong customer relationships. It seems to be key to have a good relationship with the people that you provide services to and hope in return to get money or recognition. So the third aspect, I'd like to start with the people part. I think that people are key in such a shift, a cultural shift. They can ignore it or support it or even fight against it. One of our managers recently said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think that has a certain truth in it. Within this team, 7 people have studied IT, information technology, and 1 has studied foreign languages. Some of them are responsible for a service. I have asked each of them 3 questions regarding our change of perspective, the change from tech focus to market focus that is going on, and maybe you find the answers interesting or representative on your side. So the first question covered the negative aspects. What bothers you the most regarding this shift? So one person said, I feel okay with technology. That's what I'm after. Before I had to do with clients some years ago, that was also okay. Sometimes we focus too much on individuals, creating island solutions that are not easily maintainable anymore. Another said, It was cool to implement single use cases, but not always economical. Our service orientation has led to complexity, sometimes even did not satisfy the customer at the end. A third said, nothing, this shift is logically correct. And after my studies, I was techno-focused. I had to learn the customer's language. And I think that customer value should come before technology. Another said that in the midterm, he's anyway more interested in project management and that this shift was foreseeable and announced. We'll spend less time on engineering. It was cool to immediately help customers. I am a bit uncertain what to do regarding marketing. Another said, I'm a bit unsecure. I'd like to discuss questions with external marketing gurus. One said that nothing bothers him. And finally, one statement was that it's boring if it's purely about selling and we cannot influence the product anymore. Customers might dislike if we just sell what we get. The second question, it was a question to find out what may be positive behind such a shift. And also here, several answers. I get recognition if we can help by providing useful services. I'm open anyway towards change, this change. For users, technology is secondary. It just has to work. It is important to be unique as we can't compete on price. Without value, there is only price. No alternative to this shift. If we can't express us in customer benefits, nobody will buy. And as a consumer, I work the same. So this person also liked that he would be able to work more with clients. I like to have more customer interactions. I like to discuss problems and hopefully provide solutions. This shift corresponds with my personality. As I'm anyway more interested in business administration or management than in technology, I see more opportunities than threats. Job enrichment. Because the job contains more aspects, it increases my market value for other jobs, maybe better paid jobs than development. And I like to have more client contacts. I'll enjoy to see that our services are used heavier. It will allow more strategic decisions, and I also prefer to have more customer contacts. And now the last question was, what was necessary to make such a change succeed? We should have an experienced marketing coach. I would like to do pair marketing. Higher responsibility goes in line with higher influence. I need support in communication, documentation, events, and polls. In the past, we acted like a software developer company. We will have to step up to solution provider. We will have less flexibility, therefore need to evaluate new products more carefully. I need to understand the client's real needs. I would like to get support for user polls. Great, pragmatic suppliers that are able to follow an agile path. And lighthouses among the product owners to exchange experiences. Some checklists and best practice to support customer care, communication, penetration. Some freedom to still have own preferences and strengths. So that's what people in my team have said about this shift. In the following chapter, I will strip some concepts and theory. Nothing groundbreaking, but these terms can be helpful if new in marketing like me. So one of the core terms is customer value. The customer value represents a central element in modern marketing. In a competitive environment, a customer always decides for the supplier providing the best perceived value. It also includes many non-technical things like training, documentation, and customer support. So as you see, customer value is the benefit minus the expenses. So if a solution is too expensive, then its value tends to zero. After customer value, we look at customer satisfaction. Do you have any idea how these two terms are related to each other? Customer value and customer satisfaction. So the customer satisfaction, it measures the customer value, but not before, but after the buying decision. And it's a value that can and shall be optimized, not maximized, for two good reasons. First is that the satisfied customers will continue to buy, maybe buy more and buy other services. And second is that satisfied customer will spread their word and motivate others to buy, or vice versa. Another marketing principle that I think matters is the uniqueness. There are two reasons to spend some thoughts on uniqueness. First is that our existence only makes sense in a long term if we are different in some ways from others, or in terms of the customer better than the others. Otherwise, there is just a price difference. And the second is that it will not work to take us and press us into a different template. We will not perform well if in a different template. So what can be our core advantages? I think that's valid for nearly any NRN. Our customers esteem to have a technically competent contact person. We are a trusted party. We are not profit-oriented. We do not pay bonuses. So we sit on the same side of the table as our customers. An NRN is able to invite intra-university exchange, for example, regarding IT, security, or e-learning. Many of our staff have become have an above average motivation. I don't know where it comes from, maybe because we work for something that makes sense, like education. We have experience and position to operate inter-university IT systems like networks. And we have also experience and a good position to operate IT systems that are more efficient if managed in one place instead of built in each university separately. And we are domestic, usually. So this small model shows several areas of marketing. Marketing is not only external marketing, there is also an internal marketing. So if employees are motivated, this will contribute to a better marketing towards the customer. So it can make sense to think about the several marketing channels that we have and how we manage them and who manages them. Another key to success may be in a short time to market. If we're faster on the market, we can start getting market share before others get it. We can, and I think that's especially important regarding universities, they like to do things on their own. So if we have a solution quick, then we can prevent universities doing it on their own, and our investment lasts longer. Well, that's a bit a theory block. We will now look at some measures that we took, very specific small measures, besides our daily business. So as a first step, I have invited the teammates to a workshop of 90 minutes. I explained what is the scope, that we should focus on things that we can do on our own. I gave some samples of measure, and then I gave each one some paper and a pencil, and each individually had to write down some answers to that question. What can we provide to the community in order to increase the usage? We were 4 people in total and had a result of 38 IDs in these areas. lowering entry barriers, make service better known, motivate to usage, build community, or general behavior like learning the language of the customer, French language, or having more direct contacts. After these 90 minutes, I collected it all as meeting minutes, and we then made a second meeting. 2 weeks later, we were looking back. We have added additional ideas that arose in the meantime or during the presentation. I gave some information about the budget. We have a limited marketing budget. And I asked everybody to assess each of these ideas, of these previous ideas, in 2 scales. First was the estimated usage growth, so they could give a number between 0 and 5. And the second was the estimated effort, so how much would it take us to implement this measure? How much time or money? Our main tool was an Excel sheet that could be filled out by the team members individually and then calculated a kind of effectiveness scale. I have consolidated the results and sent them back to the teammates. I have asked each one to think about which measure that might make sense for him or her. 1 month later then, we met again and reviewed the worksheet. We have let each one choose one or several measures. And there were two things important. The measure that they chose should have a certain efficiency, the efficiency we rated before, and it should correspond to the individual's strengths. So it should be something that you like to do. And I have listed some sample measures. Most of them have already been started. For example, to do a webinar regarding video in education in order to make our video portal more famous, or to create a how-to video for our file sharing service based on OwnCloud, to offer trainings, to make a workshop for experience exchange. Yeah, you can read it there. And then, in addition to that, a small internal reorganization brought Switch's e-learning community coordinator into our team of engineers. And this gave us the opportunity of better understanding our e-learning community, but also to spread information about our services. After this reorganization, we decided about 3 measures and started 2 of them to realize some synergies. Market focus also impacts the way in which we develop solutions. So 2 years ago, our customers have asked for a file sharing solution, and while in the year of 2000 we would have thought about developing something on our own, we saw that it was obvious that we would not satisfy the requirements quick enough. So we decided to build our service around an existing software. The same was true for the renovation of our lecture recording system. We believe that the market requirements of Swiss universities are not that unique that it's better to build it on our own. So we are working on an open source product. So far, our shift was quite low profile. And there were some other measures planned. For example, last summer I started drafting a document sharpening the role of the service owner, and I have reserved several thousand euros for a 2 days product management workshop for our team. But then it came better, because last September, Switch's management decided to strengthen the market approach, the mindset and processes in a way appropriate to the educational sector. And we're working on that project right now, so business developer Sebastian is also part of that project team. It should be a change project, and that's why it is led not by a manager, but by organizational development or HR department. And one thing that was clear for our management is that we must not create a sales department. And one of the underlying assumptions is that our services potential is not yet fully realized. So we think that several factors can and shall drive this project. First, it's important that everybody knows where we want to go. For example, the KPI. We can establish KPIs to make the people know where they should go. We can define roles, assign people, and trigger that work. We also think that we should, from externally, add some marketing knowledge and awareness with a good consultant. We will apply a few marketing best practices. I've listed them here. And we will also establish tools, standards, and processes that are necessary to support the above things. Well, that's the roles that we are talking about. I will not go in it in detail. Besides all the organizational things, we are also asking ourselves what is necessary to create better numbers. So how can we achieve, for example, better sales? That's mainly on the shoulders of the service owners, and we are thinking how we can make a culture that creates such passion, ideas, and action, but still follows some guardrails of Switch. Well, we are approaching the last chapter, in which I'd like to share some experiences and views from our journey. Well, to be honest, not everyone in our team likes this shift from product to market focus. One developer has left 2 years ago because she wanted to focus on development only. Others understand the reasons and change their mindset. The most efficient part in shifting our team's focus was done when this person has quit her job. By replacing her through a senior product manager, we increased our team's marketing skills significantly. We are glad to have somebody with market glasses now. The time we spent in marketing activities is missing somewhere else. This forced us to spend the remaining engineering time on things that are important to the majority of customers, not only to a single demanding customer. But saying no is not funny. We have to change to a mode where we try to tempt customers to existing solutions. And remember the critical voices in part 3 of my presentation. People are not eager for such steps. Do not make it a pain. It does not help to just increase our expectations towards staff. Also think about why somebody might do something and allow some creativity. You may be positively surprised, as I was. So I guess I will skip that slide and come to an end soon. Well, let's stay focused on the real world, not on paper theory. It doesn't change a single thing to have tons of concepts, strategies, templates, and numbers. Only realized measures will have an impact. Such a mindset takes time. Let's take this time. First, one can choose a marketing concept, ideally one that corresponds to the staff's inner motivation, like customer satisfaction, for example. And launching products can fail. Not every startup has become a success story. The same is true for marketing measures. Trying to create a user community may also fail, especially as long as we don't have the necessary experience. Be also kind to yourself. I've heard from a European running champion the advice to joggers to not train too much and too hard, otherwise they will stop after a few months. Same is true for marketing. Have a look at what you like and where you are good at in. And then the good news, I think that, and I believe that engineering is not dead, not at all. Together with marketing mindset, we can make it even more valuable. So we have reached the end of this small expedition. I hope that you could pick one or another idea with you. Besides exposing the experiences, I had 2 other reasons to hold this presentation. One is to have a good reason to participate at TNC, and the second is that I would like to meet people that face similar challenges in their teams or cultures and exchange thoughts. So I am more than happy if you email or call me. We can meet for a coffee or a beer. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Chris. Sorry to have urged you. I feel these issues are very important. I mean, at least for us, we are facing very much the same challenges and same as Slonek and Walter described. And I believe it calls for a more interactive session maybe in some future. So as we're getting late, I suggest that if there are any questions, let them to the end of the session. And now I welcome Johan, section.
Yes, thank you. My slides should be here somewhere. Oh, well. Okay, so we've heard 2 sessions on trying to listen to the market, customers, and I will try to tell you something about a project called Array, which is trying to be, so to speak, a way to let the customer be heard. So what I'll do is I'll start by giving you some context, who I am and why I'm here and what I do, and then go into the real thing. And I'm grateful for you staying on this long. I know it's late and you all want to get ready for the reception. So, yes, my name is Johan Bergström. I work as an international business developer at Umeå University in northern Sweden, a department called ITS. But I also work for an organization called UNIS. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm a representative speaking on UNIS's behalf. There is a strategic partnership between Géant and UNIS, and we share speakers to our separate conferences. We had our conference last week in Scotland. So, what is UNIS? I don't know if anybody here heard of UNIS before. Someone? Yeah? A couple of them? Oh, great. So for those of you, this might be, you might know this already, but for those of you who don't, I'll start by talking. It's a pan-European organization in the higher education sector. We're about 2,000 professionals, part of the organization from 30 countries and counting. It's a growing organization, and 120 different institutions in the sense that they are universities or colleges. But also a lot of consortia and other kinds of higher education organizations. For instance, in Italy, there's a consortium called Cinica, which represents all 90 universities in Italy. So it's a pretty large constituency. We also have several international partners, Géant being one, but also a lot abroad. One of the biggest things that UNIS delivers to our constituents is the event. We have an annual event, the annual Congress that was held last week. There is a rector's conference every other week, and we have several task forces with task force events. The task forces, which I believe Géant has as well, are 4. The e-learning task force, the BI task force, the benchmarking task force, and also an interoperability task force. The new project that I'm speaking about, Array, is the last of our offerings to our members. I'll get back to that. In 2014, I was hosting the UNIS conference in Umeå, northern Sweden. A week ago, the annual Congress, this year's Congress, was in Dundee, Scotland. And next year, and I think it won't be coinciding with the TNC conference next year, so you're very much welcome to Thessaloniki at the beginning of June next year. So let's move on to Arai. And some background. It was back in 2009, I was at a conference in the US, in Denver, listening to a talk on the e-car student study survey in America, which basically described what the customer, in this case, the student, wanted from IT in higher education. I thought, wow, this is a great idea. I wonder if we have that in Sweden. The answer, of course, was no. So I scaled that a bit, thinking about Europe. Again, there is no such thing. Nobody is actively trying to, on a larger level, finding out what the customer wants. So I talked about this, coming back to Europe, talked to participants to the 2010 UNIS conference, and in general, the answer was, well, in Europe, we're so different, universities are different from each other, countries are different, so there was no point. So I was a bit deterred, and I went home and I forgot about the idea. But last year, something changed. I don't know if I did or the world changed, but I realized that 80% of what we do is basically the same. We teach students as a university. We teach students, we conduct research, and we talk to the surrounding society. And if there are 20% that are different, well, these 20% might be the interesting part. So this actually led us to create this project that we started 1 year ago. So we haven't been flying that long. And it's basically a way to try to create a solution for better decision-making as a university, an IT leadership at a university. So when we started this project, we had a couple of assumptions or questions that we wanted to have answered. And I think you can all agree on that if you want to make good, informed decisions, it takes time. You have to find the information out there, you have to analyze the information, and this eventually leads to that you stay on to the information you already have at hand. So, thinking about that, the question was, wouldn't it be great to have a way to actually understand what the users need in this case, to understand what the ideas behind it's very annoying when you're speaking back there, sorry. Yeah, okay, I'll continue. When you're trying to make change, create change, there is, it's always difficult to beforehand understand what this change will actually lead to. And in this case, we thought, well, it would be great to have a source where the examples of value can be shared with the community. And last but not least, one question that has arisen is, what does Europe think? And this is actually something that is quite interesting. We've been working a lot with global partners, such as EDUCAUSE or CAUDIT in Australia. And that's a question that comes back to us all of the time. And often, if you want an answer to this question, you have to go to each and every country. And that again, would take some time. So this has ended up with, again, a RAI. So what this basically wants to be is a knowledge-sharing platform. And we're not trying to build a huge organization. It's supposed to be a network organization where our members in the community is sharing information amongst each other. And UNIS as an organization, this idea aligns with the mission of that organization. It's well established, been around for over 20 years. It's a growing network, and it's already pan-European collaboration. And we share channels and contacts with other partners. And again, this is one of the reasons why I'm here, hoping to discuss with you. Of course, as I said, we're not alone. There are a lot of partners out there. I know you might recognize some of the logos. There are more. There's a lot of space in the middle there to add other organizations. But so we have a large network of contacts where we try to assemble information. So what kind of information are we trying to, oops, wrong way. So what kind of information are we trying to find? Well, to begin with, there is a lot of good work being done in each country out there. Studies, reports, I know you all provide that as well. And this would be a way of marketing the ideas and concepts that are provided from national endeavors. Often it's great to have a European outlook, but the national perspective is good as well, because if we do that, we have the possibility to do additional analysis from where we have research coming from 2 countries or more. Often we run into the incidents where similar research, for instance, on MOOCs is being done in several countries, but seldom it's a good overview of what's being done in a larger area or region or the whole of Europe. And then we have the European perspective. We do this already. We have several surveys being done within UNIS and RAI. But an interesting concept is where surveys are being done or studies are being done in a specific country. Through this model, we could leverage this, coming from one country and broadening it to several countries. And finally, we have the international comparisons. We've actually done, and this is through a global organization called CHEETA. It stands for Coalition of Higher Education IT Associations, where there has been a comparison of different benchmarking on IT costs from all over the globe, which sounded insane a year ago, but we actually made it work. So this is quite interesting, but it's a talk in itself, so I'm not going to go into that now. But these are I would say, 4 levels of where we can create content. And irrespectively of what level we are, the methods, or among some of the methods that we can find and create this content would be through individual work of a person or an organization, through discussions and focus groups from one country or several countries, collaborative research, as we're discussing here. If we find surveys from one country, we can do it together in a larger scale. and also comparison on existing research. The output here is what it says here. It's articles, interviews, case studies, and of course infographics or videos for that matter. So when we started this project, there were some things that we wanted to do, 3 in fact. One was to create a organization or the processes to actually make this work. The other one was finding ways to disseminate the content. And finally, of course, the content itself. And I'll go through some of the things that we have done so far. We have an editorial committee, and in this case, the editorial committee is comprised by 12 people. This is not by far enough. So I'm actually opening up to discussion on adding individuals to this group. And one of the responsibilities of this group is to curate the information, the content that we receive or create within the organization to discuss what kind of information do we want to share. But also, these are thought leaders in the higher education sector, can provide information of their own. They have sector knowledge that is valuable. And also, perhaps most importantly, these are people who can provide a larger network of individuals that can give us information back. We also have a smaller group. I'd call that the executive group because we're doing the work, most of the work, and that's me, of course, and Michele on the far left, and Amandine from France. Speaking of how to disseminate the information, obviously there's a website where we have a blog writing right at the moment. It's on one of the members of the editorial committee writing on MOOCs and e-learning. We also have papers and articles, and this is probably one of the most exciting things for me this year. The last year is that we've had 2 so far original articles written for Arrive from the community. And that's not even by working that hard on marketing, trying to get the information. So that's very exciting. But also, we've created a journal called the UNIS Journal of Higher Education IT as a means to more formally be able to publish content. And so far we have 3 issues. Actually, there's a new one coming out real soon. And so far it's basically been part of top content coming from the congresses, but we will continually provide information on specific topics throughout the year. And one of the things, a lot of the work we're doing so far is around the work that the task forces do and the surveys that we have running right now. The benchmarking survey is an annual survey that we do on IT costs within Europe. The business intelligence is a biannual survey that we do. And the top one, the CRIS survey, is actually a survey. CRIS stands for Current Research Information Systems. It's research administration, basically. It's being done together with another pan-European organization called Eurocris. So that's quite exciting, and hopefully a good example of collaborating with Jean as well. So these 3 topics will be analyzed and reported on throughout the year. We also have the odd article writing on cloud computing, for instance. There's work in France towards the French Ministry of Education that will have a broader European outlook, because we're adding European case studies to that study. And also, for instance, last week when I was speaking at UNIS, the discussion on the role of the CIO at universities in Europe was arisen, and there was a survey being done in Germany on this specifically, and it was instantly discussed how this could be scaled to European level. I don't think we're going to do that next week, but hopefully in 2016. And these are examples of things that we know of, but we will most certainly add topics as we go along. It's going to be added, and again, hopefully I'll get some feedback from you on this as well. I think I'm gonna stop there, just a few seconds for questions, and I'll come back with a kind of a, let's say, summary after this. If you have any thoughts. No questions usually means that it's crystal clear or nobody understands.
Maybe just a practical question. I mean, are these members of this editorial committee working in what type of organizational structure? Are they sort of, working on best effort, or sort of organize their working?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's a networked approach where we don't have an organization per se, apart from UNIS, but that's not very big either. And also, and this is probably one of the reasons that I see a reason to grow the group, to make it larger, because it is on best effort, obviously. A lot of them are doing additional work for on top of what they're doing, but it's on the same topics that they work on. That's part of the reasons why they're there. But yes, I agree. And obviously, an ultimate goal would be to have the funds to have people work on full time, but we're not even close. We have to start at some end. Yeah, Tommy?
Maybe I have a question. I mean, what you're trying to do here is gather some information. I'd like to see, basically, it's about what are IT trends in higher education and how can we support it. It sounds like a very simple question, but you're trying to gather this information from very different organizations, countries, people. So it's, from my experience, it's very difficult to manage this kind of communication. And as you mentioned earlier, it takes time, and still you're working on some kind of best effort basis. So what do you expect? How can you manage this kind of information? Because to keep the ball rolling, somebody has to keep kicking it all the time. So.
Absolutely, and I try to kick as hard as I can. No, I agree, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're trying to work within an organization that already exists. There is a network of people communicating already, but also I see the point in using the resources that are already there, trying to scale it from research being done in individual countries to make it known, to create a discussion on that, and to compare and share that analysis as well.
So what you basically need is a working and alive network of people who
Yes.
contribute to it.
True. And that's why I'm trying to grow it. No more questions. So,
The campus best practice of Jean, you familiar with that?
sorry?
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the campus best practice work of Jean?
Yep.
Which sounds quite similar to a certain extent, obviously. Yeah, just the question.
Yeah, well, the similarities, well, to some extent, yes. And this is also an excellent example why there is reason probably for us to work together on this, because again, I don't see a point in doing something that someone else is already doing, rather than trying to share it to a larger group of people. So on both ends, they could be like megaphones to try to explain to the community what's actually happening out there, as a means to understanding what the customer wants. Okay, so I've said it a couple of times, and I don't think I can stress it enough, that obviously we're trying to give things, we're trying to share information about what's happening in the higher education IT sector. But as Tommy pointed out, it's a lot of work, and obviously we will need input from the community as well. So hopefully there will be discussion after this, so we can start communicating in what ways we could collaborate, and that you have experiences, case studies, topics that you want to share with us and the rest of the community. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Johan. So, I expect there are no more questions since you asked already. But do you have any ideas, or will you continue kicking the ball and trying to pull a number of people together?
I will never stop.
You will never stop, okay. Maybe for those who are not tired or leaving yet, are there or were there any questions for Chris from the previous speaker, or general questions regarding this session? Because I feel there are some issues that are addressing us all, and I would personally love to see more discussing.
With the risk of... Okay, with the risk of everybody hating me to keeping you here longer, I do have a question for Christoph. What really surprised me in your approach, where were the users? With your workshop internally and thinking about how you could improve your services, I did not see at one moment that you really went to your users and asked them, what do you want? You kept it within your group of technicians, and they started to think up ways how they could improve their service for the users. That is the worst possible place to ask such a question. I can really assure that from my own experience.
Yeah, you're completely right. I did not talk a lot about the customer, but the way of involving the customer, for example, was made during such workshops. So out of this internal process, we did some external measures like creating a user, holding a user forum and so on to listen to the community. But you're right, I did not talk about enough.
Well, in a way, I had similar question for both you and Lonneke and Walter with this user communication. I mean, you need to, for this demand pool, you need to maintain some kind of communication with the users. So how do you do it? I mean, we are all communicating with our users in more or less, well, I would say less structured ways, but to have this continued, let's say, flux of information, or to really see this demand pool, you have to maintain some more structural communication. So how do you? I mean, whoever starts is allowed to leave. We are at the end of the session. I'm just curious to hear if there are any, maybe even from the rest of you, how do you maintain this kind of communication? I mean, is there a shift in the way of communicating with users from the traditional ways, or not? Or just getting enough information as you go? Yeah, so have you changed your ways of communicating with the users? Yeah.
I'm fairly new in all the NREN environment, but what I got to say is basically that there should be a shift. However, what we face is that when I'm speaking to the IT service departments as being the main paying customers, we don't always have a clear voice or access to the community as being end customers of the services. And this is a problem that we especially have to tackle, but I guess this, well, other NRENs might have this problem as well, I guess.
Yes, well, my personal experience, I'm always proud to claim that we are, well, we as an NREN, Slovenia is a small country and it appears to be easier to maintain contacts, but what we've been trying is to maintain more or less personal contacts with the users. Obviously, you can't do that with large mass of users. So necessarily, you will select user representatives or of this or that special interest group. We have several of them, and we cannot. I admit we cannot maintain communication with all of them. So yes. But in any case, to be able to do it in a more structured way, you simply need more resources. We are too few. We can't do it. I mean, it's easy. It's easy to believe in polls, in surveys, but even for that, you need extra resources. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out. And to maintain any more specific communication takes extra people and extra approaches. So, well, that's it. I mean, there's no rocket science to it. Any more comments, or shall we conclude? Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here up to the end. And with this, our session is at the end. Thank you all. Thank you to the speakers. And yeah, let's get ready for the evening reception. I have this usual announcement, so you all know about this evening reception. It's at 8 o'clock here outside by the river. I guess you have to bring your badges. You have time to get ready. There are some extra events still going on in the building. Please check them out if you want to attend. I won't talk about gala dinner because there's still time, but there are still extra tickets. The buses will be announced tomorrow, I believe. And that's about it, I believe. Thank you.